Hey YouTube, Diesel Dan back again. It's going to be like a part 2 on this oil cooler and oil filter housing reseal. As I told you before, the backstory on this, 2007 CXU day cab, was bought used. It's an MP8 engine. Everything else here is an MP7 engine. It went up to the dealership and we got it looked at for the oil leak, and they diagnosed it as a leaking oil cooler and oil filter housing, and I think they wanted almost like $7,800 to fix it. So the company said no, brought it back here for me to do it. Like I mentioned before, there was a lot of oil leak back in this area. These 3 bolts were leaking out. The head of the bolts for the cooler were leaking out pretty good. So I thought maybe it was cracked or something, but actually this is all coolant back here. The oil cooler is actually in this section here. So there's actually no oil back there, so I don't know why they thought the oil cooler was leaking or the oil filter housing. It wasn't really that bad, but that's what they told us was, so that's what I was here to do. And I want to show you what I came into this morning. As you can see, it's all pretty much cleaned up and dry. This is how I left it yesterday, and I'm going to try to show you on my phone what I came into. Look at that. Hole number 2, it was all oily and bled because it wasn't running. As you can see, it's all torn apart. But that's what I came into this morning, and I'm like, what is going on here? So it looked like something up here in this area was leaking. There's a heat shield on this application with a piece of insulation that was saturated with oil. I thought maybe it was an old valve cover gasket because the lower half of this looks new. I thought maybe oil saturated the gasket, the insulation, and was just slowly dripping in the back. But I started cleaning up the bottom of the head here, and I want to show you what I found. There it is. It's kind of like a weird capital I configuration crack. I'm trying to get into it, block the glare as best I can. But yeah, the housing is, the head is actually cracked. Maybe it was something with the casting. I've never seen this before. It's also doing it right in this area here. It hasn't done it yet. But yeah, I'm going to stop here at this point. Let the company make the decision whether I'm going to replace the head or we're going to send it out. I am going to install the cooler and oil filter housing and the EGR core and everything on the bottom here. And maybe just leave off the turbo and the exhaust manifold. If they're going to do the head, I'll just tow it up to them and let them finish that off. But over here I have the old exhaust manifold. As I told you, the EGR bolts, I got 3 broken, so we are going to change that out. We have all my other parts here. I started cleaning up. The oil filter housing is here. Looks like one of the solenoids are fairly new, the other one here is not. I may have them on one of my shelves. I may replace them. Might make another video on that. Cleaned out the EGR valve. You can clean this stuff out. I use Super Clean. We get it in a drum here. The EGR cooler here. As you can see, I cleaned it out pretty good. You can clean these out. I know dealers don't like to do them. They'd rather just replace them for liability. I get it, but I have cleaned them over the years. When I worked for a Detroit dealer, that's what we did in the beginning before they started replacing them, mainly because they weren't available. The trick is, though, you do want it perfectly dry when you reinstall. So if you clean anything out, like all my piping I clean out really good, but I make sure everything is perfectly dry before it goes back together, because it will sit up fast if you fire it up and there is moisture in there. Here's the oil cooler cover here, and like I said, these 3 bolts here were bleeding. And as you can see, there's actually no oil behind here. The oil cooler is there. It's actually a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. And the oil inlet and outlet is, you know, 1, 2 here, in and out. That's all the oil is at. Everything else is cooling and not. It's just a big cover, actually. And here's that heat shield I was telling you about that goes up underneath the head. The insulation I already threw away because it was pretty saturated. But I'll show you where this was. This was mounted right here. So like I said, it had a piece of insulation between here and the head, and it was saturated with oil, and I thought it was just maybe residue from a previous leak or repair. But no, I mean, it was definitely this crack. Let's see. Yeah, it's still. I cleaned this up about 2, 3, 4 minutes ago, and already that much oil was already leaked out of there. Let me see if I can wipe it off for you. Let's see where we're at here. Yeah, I'm hoping you guys can see that crack a little better. There was a lot of rust built up there. I thought it was all flaked because of that. But I just cookied this real good. I actually used my cutoff tool sideways and ran across there, and you can see it already starting to get a little moist. But yeah, I don't know if it's in the casting. I've never seen that before. Something's going on here. I mean, it is only a 17. I would not expect this from a 2017, maybe pre-2010 maybe. But I mean, all that is the oil that's just laying on in the head. So I can imagine how bad this was leaking driving down the road with pressure and with the oil getting hot and thin. So yeah, we're gonna need to head on this. Like I said, I don't know if they're gonna have me do it or not. I don't make the big decisions here, so I'm just gonna finish up putting back what I have taken apart, and if they decide to send it out, I'll just put the turbo and the manifold on the back and have it towed up to them. There's no point in reinstalling that stuff with the installation kits just for them to remove it. So yeah, this was kind of interesting, but it was misdiagnosed, so the company would have spent $8 grand just to spend another $8 grand on a head. So maybe something to look out for too if you get some weird oil leak that's running down the back of the cooler here on these MP8s. There is no oil, as you can see. That's where the coolant jacket is. You can actually see the liners in there. And I'm surprised they're actually as clean as they are for a 17. I believe this truck has about 400-some thousand miles on it. So, like I said, I don't know what the history of the truck is, but it definitely wasn't either core or filter housing. So yeah, I'll let you know what happens. If I do any more on this, I'll post another video, but we're gonna stop right now and see what the company says. Alright guys, thanks. To the next one.